Madam President.
Senator from Vermont.
Madam President, I first ask unanimous consent that I be allowed to finish my statement prior to the vote.
Without objection.
First, Madam President, I hope everybody listened to the speech of the distinguished senator from Colorado. It's the sort of thing that when my grandparents came to Vermont from Italy, or my great-grandparents to Vermont from Ireland, it's what would have appealed to them. We're not the only ones who could say if you're against immigration, leave are Native Americans. And they don't say that. So I think he's absolutely right. On another matter, Madam President, the horrors we've witnessed in the weeks and months following Vladimir Putin's unprovoked attack on Ukraine are an abomination, an affront to all civilized people. Entire communities wiped from the face of the earth, countless lives ruined. We've seen pictures of unarmed civilians summarily executed randomly in the street. Civilians. Millions of desperate people fleeing everything they've ever known because one man's zeal to destroy whatever is necessary to realize his own twisted version of the world. All of this while fueling a broader humanitarian crisis across the region, spiraling costs, and sparking a global hunger crisis. Now, the need is clear for this Congress to act decisively, to act now, to reaffirm our unwavering support for the Ukrainian people in protecting their lives and their country and to stem this global crisis. The United States stands against the atrocities inflicted upon the free people of Ukraine. It's an independent country, has a democratically elected government. Now, last Tuesday, a week ago, the House passed H.R. 7691, providing more than $40 billion in emergency funding, did that with overwhelming bipartisan support. And the Senate should have done the same. We had plenty of time to. We should have sent this bill to the President so he could immediately execute on it and get this much-needed aid into Ukrainian hands. Unfortunately, one member out of 100 has decided to slow this process down. One member has caused needless delay. In a few moments, we'll vote to invoke cloture on the motion to proceed to H.R. 7691. Because of Senator Paul's objection, we must go through this step just to bring this bill up for debate. So I urge everyone to vote yes. And I would urge the senator from Kentucky to reconsider his objection. Help us move quickly to get this bill to the President. Do what the American people want to do to help the people of Ukraine. This emergency bill provides $40.1 billion, $7.1 billion more than the administration requested in critical military and humanitarian assistance for Ukraine to help defend democracy abroad, to address the rising global hunger crisis the world is facing, in large part due to Russia's aggression. And that includes $8.5 billion in additional presidential drawdown authority for critical weapons transfers, $6 billion for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. This will allow us to continue to supply the Ukrainians with the tools they need to defend themselves and their country and their freedom. And the urgent need for these resources cannot be overstated. As we stand here today, the administration is raising the alarm that if we do not act, the resources we provided in March, would have been critical to Ukraine's success on the battlefield, will be exhausted in a matter of days. In other words, we tell them, put your life on the line to stop this dictator from Russia, but we're not going to back you up. That's why we have more than $8.5 billion for the Economic Support Fund to respond to emerging needs in the country, medical care, food, The humanitarian crisis instigated at the hands of Vladimir Putin is not limited within Ukraine's borders. It's within or even within the borders of Eastern Europe. You know, last year before Putin's war, Ukraine grew enough food to feed 400 people. Today, they can't even feed their own people. As David Beasley, the executive director of the UN World Program, testified for appropriations last week, war has forced Ukraine from being a global breadbasket to being on the bread lines. Just think of that. If ports are not open, the food, tens of millions of tons of wheat, barley, maize, will they be stolen or go to waste? And we know that's going to have a ripple effect, increasing the number of facing acute hunger by 47 million, bringing the estimated global total to 323 million people suffering from acute hunger in 81 countries. WFP operates in alone. That's why we cannot wait to act on this crisis. As noted in one Washington Post editorial, preventing a looming global famine is as urgent and morally necessary as sending tanks to Ukraine. But the bill provides over $5 billion for global food aid. If the funds are programmed quickly, they're going to save millions of lives. Vladimir Putin's war is exacerbating the global crisis of food insecurity already set in motion by the COVID pandemic. In that regard, I'm extremely disappointed, and many members of our Appropriations Committee are extremely disappointed. The bill does not include new resources to address the ongoing COVID pandemic. Last week, we passed a grim toll of 1 million COVID deaths in our country, as many as 20 million worldwide. If we don't act soon and prepare for anticipated surges in fall and winter, as immunity from existing vaccines wanes, the death toll will rise, perhaps exponentially. And for months, the administration has warned that we don't have the necessary vaccines and therapeutic tests to stay ahead. We don't have enough funding to purchase new ones. And you don't do this by simply flipping a switch. We just can't say, we'll appropriate the money later in the fall if it's needed. What's that going to pay for the months and months of preparation to get there to protect us? I have only weeks to provide this funding. As chairman of the Appropriations Committee, I'll work very hard to get it. But we have to all come together. This is not a Democratic or Republican matter. This is an American matter. Of course we should help the people in Ukraine. I strongly support that. But we've also got to help the people in America facing the threat of COVID. But the people of Ukraine, the millions facing acute food insecurity, require the funds in this bill today. It never should have been held up last week, so I strongly urge the Senate to pass without further delay, and I ask consent that my full statement be made part of the record.
Without objection.
I yield
Clerk,
the floor.
the clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close the debate on the motion to proceed to calendar number 368, H.R. 7691, an act making emergency supplemental appropriations and so forth and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators.
By unanimous consent, the mandatory quorum call has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the motion to proceed to H.R. 7691, an act making emergency supplemental appropriations for assistance for the situation in Ukraine for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022, and for other purposes, shall be brought to a close? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett.